G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Guvs Hero Review videos. Today's video is featuring the 5-star legendary yellow heroine, Whipster, the electrical combat engineer. So Whipster is, as we saw there, available for summons from the Raiders of the Wasteland Challenge Event portal, which comes around once every 16 or so weeks. It is on a 4-weekly time slot in the calendar rotation, but it does rotate with 3 other challenge events. So we got a 4-weekly appearance with 4 events, so it's a 16-weekly event. Whipster herself was added to the PuzzleCombat a little bit ago now, back in July 2022, roughly 2 years after the Raiders Challenge Event first featured, as part of an update SGG were doing to expand the Challenge Event portals of the time. The Raiders Event portal was expanded one additional time in July 2023, when Inferno was also added to the cohort. The portal itself, we can see the odds there sitting at 1% chance for a featured hero and 0.6% chance for an unfeatured event hero. To put that in perspective, if you were to do 100 summons in this portal, across those 100 summons you would have an 80% probability of getting any of the event 5-star heroes, a 63.4% probability of getting an event, a featured event hero, and a 45.2% probability of getting an unfeatured event 5-star hero. If we dive into the specifics, you have a 39.4% probability of getting a specific featured hero, but just a 13.9% chance of getting a specific unfeatured event hero across those 100 summons. Notably, that last number will drop off further as more heroes get added into the portal. Flipping across and taking a look at her artwork, we can see there that she is obviously the electrical combat engineer. She's got like a Tesla coil whip, I think is what they call it, but it's basically an electric whip. It's kind of cool. It's actually got a pretty interesting animation as well. But she is also apparently an electrical combat engineer, which means lugging around a battery on your hip as well as a power pack and some jumper cables, I guess, in there as well. I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird one. I can't imagine it being hugely mobile. But yeah, that's her artwork, so feel free to pause it if you wish. The electrical whips are actually kind of cool, particularly because you can do sparkles on them. Anyway, that's it. I'll jump back across, so pause that if you wish, but otherwise, let's keep chatting along through her card. So, her card itself, obviously a member of the Raiders family, as is the case with all of these heroes, which means Whipster is granted a 10% chance to trigger the Radiation Storm whenever casting her special skill. The Radiation Storm will give 285 healing over 3 turns to all allies, and 198 poison damage to all enemies over 3 turns. We also see there is a stat bonus of plus 2, 4, 6, or 8% attack when we have 2, 3, 4, or 5 unique Raiders family members in the battle. So 2 things to note. Number 1, Radiation Storm does not require multiple heroes. It is inherent to every Raiders family member. So Whipster on her own has a 10% chance when she casts a skill to trigger the Radiation Storm. The other thing that I would like to point out is that the stat bonus does have to be unique heroes. So that means that it can't be triggered by 2 copies of Whipster. It's got to be 2 different heroes, like combining Whipster with Coaster or Whipster with Richter as 2 different examples. On the personal side of things, Whipster comes in with 790 attack, 657 defense, and 1,401 HP. So that overall results in a bit of a skew going from that defense stat across to her attack stat. We can see there is a sizable skew going on there, which is kind of interesting, I guess. Helps towards her damage output. The other thing to note is that she does have 709 power. It is improved compared to the OG Raiders family members. They were at 683 thereabouts, but it is a bit decreased compared to some of the most recent heroes into the game, like Topaz at 742. All the power represents is it represents their base stats. So more power equals more base stats to distribute, and that's what we call power creep at the end of the day. Moving on from those stats, her charge speed set to 58, which is fast speed and requires just 9 tiles to charge or 5 ghosted tiles. The speed break happens at speed 65, so that's a plus 7 speed improvement, which you can actually do using a weapon on its own. Yellow has the plus 7 Tris Vector, which is a 4-star speed gun. Alternatively, you can also get the speed break using the 5-star Ragnarok Vantage, but for that one you must combine the plus 6 speed improvement from that weapon with the 4% charge generation improvement that you find at plus 20 on Whipster's emblem tree. So obviously that is a lot of emblems, so the speed node is relevant if you wish to use the Ragnarok Vantage with her. However, if you want to use the Tris Vector, that's obviously null and void, and obviously if you just don't mind keeping her at 9 tiles to charge, also no need to apply it and get that far down the tree. On the topic of her class, she is a member of the support class, which grants Whipster the chance to withstand negative status effects and charge drain effects. So it is a pretty decent perk, particularly that chance to withstand charge cutting effects, like what we see on heroes like Dragon Fist or Attk. It's kind of the inverse of the Recon talent. This one, you take the damage but can withstand the charge cut and the ailments, but the Recon talent, you would evade the damage but take all of the ailments. So a little bit of a swapsy-woosy there. By way of an emblem path, I personally would recommend going the attack path, is what I did on mine before I reset her. You can make an argument to go the opposite route and go the defense HP path, but I personally, if I'm going to make the suggestion, I would advise going the attack path, just to increase her damage output overall. So what that looks like on the tree is we are following the nodes that have got attack on them. Where there is no attack choice, which there is only one of, I did go the defense route in my suggestion, so you can see that's what the path would look like there. The 19 node, possibly worthwhile to grab the attack points, but overly not really relevant or not hugely necessary, because at the end of the day, it is a fair number more emblems for only a slight stat improvement. But yeah, that's the emblem path I would recommend, going the attack path. If you were to go the inverse and do the defense path, it is pretty much the opposite, like literally. So we're going the side that's got defense and HP where it's choosable, and then following that the whole way down. Oops. Whether you choose between HP or defense is kind of up to you. I personally lean towards going defense just because it makes better use of things like minions and that sort of thing, where the HP does not so much. So that's the defense HP path that I would suggest following if you wish to give her added survival. But anyway, screenshot one or rewind and go get the other one. Either way, let's jump back across and we can continue looking at her special skill. So, Whipster's special skill is titled Tesla Coil Whip, as I kind of mentioned earlier. And at level 10 skill and 58 charge speed, it will deal 180% damage to all enemies, increase the damage of turn-based status effects by plus 25% for 3 turns, and it will dispel buffs from all enemies. So, breaking that down a little bit, starting with the damage component. As always, damage is easy enough to calculate, but there's a lot of variability in it. To simplify it though, I tend to calculate and compare heroes based on their attack stat, which is, their attack power, which is just the attack stat, 790, multiplied by the percentage in their skill. In the case of Whipster, we can see that her speed normalized attack power comes out at 158, so 158 attack power per tile. That's also on a per enemy basis, so 5 enemies, we multiply that by 5, and that gets you her final attack power number. So you can see there, Whipster comes in at number 1 of the DOA 5 options in yellow. There's not many DOA 5 hitters, there's only 6 of them in total. Across all of the elements, there's still only 44 DOA 5 hitters. It's a relatively small field of heroes. We see a lot more snipers and a lot more DOA 3 hitters in the game than we do DOA 5, but Whipster's maintained a pretty good range, right? She's number 1 of the yellows, she's number 7 of the 44 options, and that's also worth pointing out that the best of those options comes in at 200 attack power per tile. So it is about a bit above her. It's about a 1/3 improvement on hers, is what the best ones are offering. But still, she is quite a good DOA 5 option, particularly and this applies to all of the yellow ones, but particularly because yellow benefits from 8-bit, who's a 4-star AoE 5 elemental defense down hero, and that can really enhance the damage. So 8-bit gives off a minus 48% elemental defense debuff, which equates to roughly a 2.2x multiplier on the damage output. So this is 8-bit here. There's a lot more really great synergies between using Whipster with 8-bit, which I'll get into later on in my summary. So yeah, that's sort of the damage component. You can see some of the other options that were on there as well. You've got Marrow, Variant Stone himself, Karlov, Mothor, all of them are coming in worse, particularly Mothor at a long way below. Moving on from the damage, we get to the DOT enhancement. So this is where all enemies receive plus 25 damage from turn-based status effects for the next 3 turns. So how this works is it takes the DOT that would normally be done to an enemy hero and it puts a 1.25x multiplier on it, and then that's the final damage that gets inflicted. So this applies to things like Burn, Poison, Bleed, Blaze, Master Weapon Quest events, and all of that. Some weird ones is that it applies to Shock. I don't really understand why, but it does. It applies to the Shock element. Even though it literally has nothing to do with turns or anything like that, but whatever, that's SGG's logic. But the other one that's weird is that it doesn't apply to Scarlet's damage. Even though her damage is turn-based and it's coming from an effect, it just doesn't count as turn-based damage. So whatever, those are 2 weird intricacies with it, but everything else makes sense. 25% itself, it is one of the lowest. Actually, it is the lowest option that's available. What we see as typical is 50% damage improvement. So we see this on heroes like Dr. Scorpion, Torrent, Mastodon. Those guys are a 50% increase. Whipster's only 25%. What the big difference, though, is between them is that Whipster's guaranteed to hit all enemies, whereas they're only target or targeted nearby. Mastodon is a random targeting, so there's no guarantee he's even going to hit more than one enemy. I will make one final note, which is about that internal synergy between Whipster and the family bonus. So obviously the Radiation Storm has that poison element in there. So with Whipster, because she applies this 25% increase at the same time as the Radiation Storm, for the full 3 turns of the Radiation Storm, instead of it being 198 over 3 turns, it ends up being 246 damage over 3 turns. So 25% improvement from the family bonus as well. The final part of her skill is there at the Dispels. So this says that it removes buffs from all enemies. Really great effect, end of the day. It's got so many uses in the game. Very good at neutralizing enemies that are very buff dependent for them to be effective. How it works, any buffs that are on the afflicted enemies, which is all of them, will just suddenly disappear. Except, of course, those that state that this effect cannot be cleared, or stacks, like we see on the Rock Band heroes. Those ones, they won't disappear because they're just not counted as armor. So end of the day as well, there's actually not many AoE dispellers in the game. There are fewer still of those AoEs that are AoE 5 dispels, which makes Whipster an incredibly valuable hero in that regard. So in total, there are only 16 5-star heroes that are AoE dispellers. There are 4 additional ones if you expand it out and include the 4-star heroes as well. But of those total 20, only 7 of them are AoE 5 dispellers. And of the 7, 4 of them are 4-star heroes. So Whipster is one of only 3 AoE 5 dispelling heroes in the entire game. And there are like 200 plus heroes now in the game. So it makes her incredibly versatile and a very, very valuable hero. Not unique, but pretty close to it at the end of the day. The biggest downside for Whipster, and this is the case for pretty much every one of the Dispellers, is that it's only linked to enemies that she hits, and also that the Dispel only occurs after the damage is dealt. So what this means is if the enemy heroes dodge or anything like that, or she misses because she's got inaccuracy, she can't Dispel their buffs. Similarly, if there is hitting a hero with counterattack or a defense buff or something like that, unfortunately, the damage is listed before the Dispel, so Whipster will take the counterattack damage or the defense buff will be in play and reduce the damage from her skill as well. It's not an issue that's wholly unique to Whipster. In fact, it is basically on every single AoE Dispel hero, other than the handful. There are only 5 that hit Dispel from enemies that they don't have to specifically hit. Specifically, they are Pantera, Rex, Thalia. They target 1, Dispel all. And then you've got Ryoko and Variant Throttle. They Dispel from all without having to hit or deal damage to anyone. So, yeah. Overall, Whipster is a pretty alright hero. She is the best of the DOA 5 hitters in yellow and holds up reasonably well when you compare and bring in all the other elements as well. She does have probably one of the best synergies available, I mean almost in the entire game, which is between her and the elemental defense down hero 8-bit. Now, I said I'd expand on this a little bit and this is the time I'm going to do it. So, both of them are AoE 5 heroes. Both of them charge at the same speed. Both of them are members of the Raiders family, which doubles the chance for the Radiation Storm effect to actually activate, but it also creates that 2% attack bonus for each of them from the family bonus. With that even being added on, we then have the fact that both of them are AoE 5 hitters, and 8-bit does effectively a 2.2x multiplier to Whipster's damage. So essentially what you've got is you've got this pair of heroes that come from the same portal, they're from the same family, they charge at the same rate, they hit the same enemies, and can effectively double the damage output from from the other member. It's an incredibly great synergy, and I don't think there's another instance where you can get so much value and so much synergy from this same portal. It is actually pretty impressive. But even without 8-bit, if we take 8-bit out of the equation, the AoE 5 Dispel gives Whipster so much strategic use, and it combats, as I said, so many different heroes that exist in the game. You then have the fun benefit and the fun application around creating teams with the DOT, because she does enhance those effects. And it is great to combine her with heroes that do like Blaze or Burn or Poison, and just watching heroes get absolutely annihilated by just turn-based damage at the end of the turn. It's really fun to watch. So, For Whipster's grading, I am going to give her a B+ for war and raid attacks. I think she's a very versatile hero, a lot of uses, good speed, good damage, and yeah, like I said, great synergy with 8-bit as well. For the war machines, I'm going to give her a B-. This is mostly on the back of her attack stat, ultimately. She's not what you'd constitute as being a war machine specialist, but she does have relatively inflated attack, so will help your tiles out a bit. For the events, I'm going to give her a B- as well. AoE 5 damage is better than snipers, but still not as good as AoE 3 or multi-hitters at the end of the day. For the defense side of things, I'm going to give her a C- for war and raid defense. I don't think her stats really lend her much validity to be a defense application, nor are any of her skills really going to be impacting there. The best position would probably be at the flank spot, with possibly another yellow hero on the other flank around a purple tank. That would kind of be the best situation, but yeah, she's not a good defensive hero, so C- there. In our 3 tournaments, so we've got the Bloody Battle tournament. This is where healing is negated, so I'm going to give her a B+ on attack there and a C- on defense. The buff booster, she's obviously got an AoE 5 Dispel, so incredibly useful there. So I'm going to bump her up to an A- on buff booster attack and a C grade for buff booster defense. And finally, on the charge tournament, I'm going to give her an A- on charge tournament attack and a C- on charge tournament defense on the back of a slight speed improvement. So overall, that comes out as being a B grade for Whipster's attack and a C- for her overall defense grade. And that concludes the content for this review of Whipster. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback, so please do drop down to the comments section and leave me a note. I try to read and respond as much as possible. If you did enjoy the video and found it to be useful, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel and all of that, but also share the video around, because chances are, if this is useful for yourself, it's also going to be useful to other people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!